The moment she walked into their home, everything shifted. Her world shattered in the blink of an eye. What she saw, her sister, in her husband's arms, wasn't just a betrayal. It was a loss so deep, it felt like the ground beneath her was crumbling away. The love she thought was hers, the family she trusted, had all been a lie. And the truth that unfolded would change her forever. I never thought something like this could happen to me. You always hear about betrayal in stories or see it in movies, but you never think it'll be your own reality. I thought I had it all: a loving husband, a sister who was more like a best friend. We had that kind of bond, that unshakable trust. But one moment, one heartbreaking revelation, turned my whole life upside down. I had walked into my home expecting the usual peace. But what I found shattered everything. There they were, my husband, the man I'd given my heart to, and my sister, the one person I thought would always have my back. They were tangled in a lie that ran deeper than anything I could have imagined. In that moment, I felt betrayed in a way I didn't know was possible. I've never been able to put into words the devastation of realizing that the people you trust the most, the ones who are supposed to be your safe place, are the very ones breaking you. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, only feel the betrayal sinking in with each passing second. It felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me, and all I had left was a broken heart and a life I couldn't even recognize anymore. It's a pain I wouldn't wish on anyone, but it's something that changed me forever. It started with little things, things I could easily dismiss if I wanted to. At first, it was the way he seemed distracted when we were together. The quiet moments between us felt longer, like there was a wall growing that I couldn't quite see. His once constant gaze, the kind that always made me feel like I was the only person in the room, started drifting. I'd catch him staring off into space, his mind clearly somewhere else. Then there were the missed calls. I remember seeing his phone light up in the middle of dinner one evening, a number I didn't recognize flashing on the screen. He quickly silenced it and shoved the phone face down without saying a word. I told myself it was nothing, just business or a wrong number. But my gut told me something was off, and I couldn't shake it. The most jarring part was the distance. It wasn't physical. He'd still hold my hand in public, still kiss me goodnight, but it was emotional. He stopped sharing his day with me the way he used to. We used to talk about everything: the little annoyances at work, the funny things that happened when we were apart. Now, he'd come home late and barely offer any details. It was like he was keeping things to himself, guarding something, and that something didn't include me. And when I confronted him about the changes, the response was always the same, a quick reassurance that everything was fine. But the words didn't match the look in his eyes. I started wondering if I was imagining things, but the growing feeling in my chest told me otherwise. There was something he wasn't telling me, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I never expected to walk in on something like that. The house was quiet when I returned early from work, too quiet. I was planning to surprise him, maybe make his favorite dinner, but when I stepped inside, I felt this unsettling chill in the air. I was halfway down the hall when I heard its soft voices, muffled laughter coming from the living room. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe they were watching TV together, but then I heard the unmistakable sound of my sister's laugh. It stopped me in my tracks. She wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't expecting her. I crept closer, my heart pounding, and then I saw them through the crack of the door. He was sitting on the couch, his arm draped casually around her, his lips pressing into her hair as she leaned into him. They were laughing like everything was normal. My breath caught in my chest. My knees felt weak, and for a second, I couldn't move. I just stared, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. I blinked, hoping the scene would change, that they would pull away and everything would make sense. But it didn't. I couldn't breathe. The world around me seemed to spin, and then the anger came, hot and wild, rushing up from somewhere deep inside me. My heart was pounding, my hands shaking as I swung the door open. What the hell is going on here? My voice was barely a whisper, barely loud enough to make them look up, but when they did, their faces turned pale. Her eyes widened, and his face went slack, as if he'd been caught doing something he never thought he'd get caught doing. I could barely process their words. "It's not what you think," he started, but I didn't want to hear it. I looked at my sister, the one person I trusted with everything, the woman who had shared my life for so long. She couldn't even meet my eyes. That look, that guilt on her face, cut deeper than anything I could have imagined. Did you ever think I might be hurt by this? I spat, my voice shaking with fury. The betrayal burned through me like fire, each word I spoke feeling like I was being torn apart from the inside. I loved you both, I whispered, my throat closing as the tears started to fall, hot and fast. How could you do this to me? There were no more words, no more excuses. The silence that followed was deafening, a suffocating reminder of everything I thought I knew about love and family, now shattered beyond recognition. The shock of it all didn't settle in immediately. At first, there was just disbelief, like I was watching someone else's nightmare unfold. But then the weight of it hit me. My husband, the man I trusted with everything, had been lying to me. Worse, he hadn't just lied to me, he'd gone to the one person I thought would always protect me. My sister, the woman who knew me better than anyone else, had broken me in a way I didn't think was possible. It started with anger. A fire, burning hot and quick, made me lash out at both of them. I yelled, demanded answers, even though I could already feel the pain seeping in. My husband's weak excuses made me sick, and my sister's silence, her inability to even look me in the eye, cut deeper than anything he could have said. I wanted to scream, to tell them both how much they'd hurt me, but the words wouldn't come out. I was too stunned, too betrayed to find the right ones. The anger didn't last long, though. It faded quickly, replaced by a crushing sadness. How could I not have seen it? How could I have trusted them both for so long, believing in something that was built on lies? I thought of the moments I'd shared with him, the quiet conversations we had about our future, the intimacy we'd built over the years. I thought of my sister, my closest confidant, the person I'd laughed with, cried with, shared my deepest fears and secrets with. And now, they were both strangers to me. It wasn't just the betrayal of the affair that hurt. It was the devastation of realizing that the love I'd felt for them, the foundation of my life, had all been a lie. I couldn't look at my husband without seeing him through a lens of distrust, and every time I saw my sister, I felt the sting of her betrayal like a constant ache in my chest. It was as though they had become reminders of my own failure to see the truth. When I tried to talk to him, to ask him why, the words felt hollow. He apologized, but it was too little, too late. The man I thought I knew, the man I had given my heart to, was nothing more than a stranger now. Each apology felt like a slap, as if his guilt was meant to somehow erase what he'd done. And when I tried to talk to my sister, I couldn't find it in me to forgive her. She kept saying how sorry she was, how she'd never meant to hurt me, but I couldn't hear her. How could she not have known the pain this would cause me? How could she betray me like this and expect everything to go back to normal? It's hard to explain how it feels to lose both your partner and your sister at the same time. It was a kind of heartbreak I never thought I'd experience, like the ground beneath me had disappeared, and I was left falling, alone. Every day felt like a struggle, like I was walking through a fog, unsure of what was real and what was a lie. I didn't know where to go from there. I didn't know if I could ever trust again, if I could ever look at them the same way. My relationships with both of them had been tainted forever. Every moment we shared felt like a shadow of what it used to be, and the weight of that grief made it impossible to find closure. Some days, I felt numb, like I was just going through the motions, pretending that things were okay when nothing would ever be the same. And on other days, I was angry again, furious that they could be so careless with my heart, with our bond. I had loved them both deeply, and now, that love felt hollow, like something that had been taken from me. It's strange, the way betrayal can warp everything you thought you knew about love and loyalty. It doesn't just break trust, it changes who you are, how you see the world, and how you see yourself. The hardest part, I think, is learning to trust again, not just others, but yourself. Because in the end, that's what the affair took from me the most, the belief that I knew who I was, who I could count on. That's what stings the most. The anger was the first thing I felt. It consumed me, burning through my chest like wildfire. It made my thoughts chaotic, my body tremble. How could he? How could she? The two people I loved most, the two people I trusted the most, had turned on me. And I was left standing in the ruins of everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. I tried to understand, to make sense of it all. I replayed every moment in my mind, searching for clues, signs I had missed. There were none. No big warnings, no glaring red flags. I thought everything was fine. I thought we were fine. I never saw this coming. And that was the worst part. How had I been so blind? Then came the doubt. It crept in slowly at first, like a whisper in the back of my mind. Was I being too harsh? Was I overreacting? Maybe they didn't mean to hurt me this way. Maybe it was just a mistake, something that shouldn't have happened. But as much as I tried to convince myself of this, I knew deep down that I couldn't forgive them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The betrayal was too deep. The way they had lied to me, right under my nose, it made my skin crawl. Confusion soon followed. I didn't know who to be angry with more. My husband, the man I had built a life with, or my sister, the one person I thought would always have my back. It felt like my entire world had been turned upside down. There was no way to separate the two. They were both responsible, yet each one of them had hurt me in a way that was uniquely painful. My husband, the one who had promised to love me through everything, had broken the sacred trust between us. And my sister, she was supposed to be the person who had my back no matter what. Yet here she was, tangled in the same web of lies, betraying me in the worst possible way. Some days, I felt like I could barely breathe. The emotional toll it was taking on me was overwhelming. My chest tightened, my thoughts scattered. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. All I could think about was the image of them together, the way my world had shifted in an instant. I couldn't escape it. It followed me everywhere I went. There were moments when I wondered if I'd ever feel like myself again, if I'd ever stop feeling this hollow, this broken. And yet, despite everything, there were moments of weakness. I found myself longing for the comfort of my husband's touch, the way he used to hold me at night and whisper everything would be okay. I missed the life we had, the plans we made, the future I thought we'd share. But those moments were fleeting. They were always replaced by a wave of rage and heartbreak that reminded me of the truth. The truth I didn't want to face but couldn't escape. In the quiet moments, I even found myself questioning if I had done something wrong. Was I not enough for him? Did I fail somewhere? The guilt was unfair, but it still crept in. It was like a voice in my head, telling me I wasn't worthy of love, that I had somehow caused this. But I knew better. I knew this wasn't my fault. This wasn't about me. This was about them and their choices. Every day felt like a battle, a war between the anger that pushed me away from them and the part of me that still wanted to believe in them. Could I ever forgive them? Could I ever trust them again? The thought of going back to a life where I pretended nothing happened seemed impossible. The betrayal was too fresh, too raw. But the idea of losing them both entirely was even harder to bear. The conflicting emotions tore me apart, and I didn't know which way to turn. I was left in limbo, stuck between the need to protect myself and the desire to fix what was broken. I didn't know how to move forward, or if I even wanted to. Every part of me wanted to shut them out, to sever the ties that bound me to them. But another part of me, one that I hated, still missed them, still wanted to believe that the people I had loved for so long could come back to me. That maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild from the ruins. But I wasn't sure if I could survive that kind of rebuild. And so, I waited. I waited for the anger to fade, for the confusion to clear, for the pain to lessen. But I knew deep down that no matter how much time passed, the scars would remain. The people I once knew were gone, and I had to learn to live with that truth. The hardest part was realizing I might never know who I could trust again. Not even myself. After the initial storm of anger and betrayal, the real challenge began. What do I do now? I found myself trapped between two impossible choices, each one carrying its own emotional weight. Do I try to salvage my marriage, to repair what felt irreparably broken? Or do I walk away from both my husband and my sister, cutting them out of my life entirely? The thought of staying with my husband was suffocating. Every time I looked at him, I saw the man who had betrayed me, who had turned my sister into someone I could never trust again. Could I really look past the affair? Could I ever forgive him? The very idea of forgiving him felt like an impossible feat, but then there were the small glimpses of the man I once loved, the man who had been my partner, my confidant. We had shared so much, built a life together, and the thought of throwing all of that away was gut-wrenching. If I chose to stay, I knew it would never be the same. The trust would be shattered, and rebuilding it seemed like a mountain too steep to climb. We'd have to fight for every moment of normalcy, every piece of affection, because nothing would ever be pure again. I would constantly wonder if he was lying, if I was being deceived again. The emotional toll of trying to fix what felt like an unfixable fracture was overwhelming. Could I endure that? Could I live with the constant reminder of what he had done, of the damage that was done by the people I loved the most? On the other hand, walking away meant cutting ties with the only two people who had always been there for me. It meant facing the reality that my sister, the woman I thought would always stand by me, had chosen my husband over me, and that was something I wasn't sure I could ever recover from. Could I really walk away from family? From the shared memories and the bond we had? Every relationship I had built, every foundation of trust, would be crumbled. The idea of never seeing my sister again, of telling myself I could never trust her, was a bitter pill to swallow. Leaving them both meant starting over. It meant rebuilding my life from the ground up, with no idea where to start or how to begin again. Could I even do that? Could I handle the loneliness, the loss, and the pain of cutting them both out? But the alternative, staying with them and always feeling like something was missing, something was broken, was almost worse. The emotional toll of staying in a relationship that had been shattered felt like I was drowning slowly, losing pieces of myself along the way. Each decision had consequences. Staying meant living with the weight of betrayal every single day, questioning everything, fighting for something that might never be fixed. Walking away meant facing the heartache of losing two people I loved, possibly forever. I didn't know which path would be more painful, and that uncertainty paralyzed me. I spent days, weeks, grappling with the choice, trying to figure out which option would allow me to heal, to move forward. But it wasn't easy. My emotions were tangled. I wanted to trust again, but I didn't know if I could. I wanted to believe in love, but how could I when the people I loved most had torn my heart apart? The decision felt impossible, and no matter what I chose, the scars would remain. I would never be the same person I was before I found out about the affair. Each option carried a piece of pain, and each one meant losing something that mattered deeply to me. The hardest part wasn't knowing what to choose. It was knowing that no matter what I decided, there would be no going back. It didn't happen overnight. Closure, I learned, wasn't something that could be handed to you or forced into existence. It was something I had to find within myself, step by painful step. After everything, the anger, the heartbreak, the confusion, I reached a point where I realized that staying stuck in the pain wasn't serving me. It was only holding me hostage. So, I made the decision to stop waiting for an apology, to stop waiting for them to fix things, because I had learned that sometimes the healing had to come from within. The first real step toward closure was letting go of the anger. It wasn't easy, not by a long shot. I spent a lot of nights crying, shouting into the void, questioning everything. But slowly, as the days passed, I started to feel a shift. Anger wasn't going to bring me peace. It wasn't going to fix the past. So, I began to let go of it. Not because I forgave them, that was something I wasn't ready for yet, but because I understood that holding on to the anger was only hurting me. It was like carrying a weight that I didn't need to carry anymore. I spent time focusing on myself, rediscovering who I was without them. For so long, I had been defined by my relationships with others, my husband, my sister, but I had forgotten about the woman I had been before all of this. I started doing the things that made me happy, things I had put on the back burner for years. I went for long walks, rediscovered my love for painting, even took a weekend trip by myself to a place I'd always wanted to visit. It was small things, but they helped me reconnect with the woman I had lost somewhere along the way. Healing, I realized, wasn't linear. There were days when I felt strong, empowered, like I had reclaimed my life. But there were other days when the pain came crashing back in, and I'd find myself remembering their faces, the moments of betrayal. On those days, I gave myself permission to feel it all, to sit with the hurt, and then to move forward once I was ready. I stopped rushing my own healing process, stopped telling myself I needed to be over it or better in a certain amount of time. I took it one day at a time. What helped me heal the most was learning to trust myself again. I realized that I had been so focused on their actions, their choices, that I had forgotten how to listen to my own instincts. The affair had shaken my belief in what I thought I knew, but it also taught me the importance of trusting my gut, of valuing my own worth above all else. I started to remember that I am enough, that I don't need anyone's validation to feel worthy. As the months passed, I began to feel a shift inside me. The pain wasn't gone, it would never fully disappear, but I was no longer defined by it. I wasn't the woman who had been betrayed anymore. I was the woman who survived it, who chose to rise from the ashes. I had learned to set boundaries, to protect my heart, and most importantly, I had learned to love myself again. The lessons I took from the experience were invaluable. I learned that people are capable of great hurt, but that I have the strength to move forward even when the ones I trusted fail me. I learned that forgiveness, when I'm ready for it, isn't about them, it's about freeing myself. I learned that closure comes from within, and no one else can give that to me. And most importantly, I learned that I am capable of standing on my own, of creating a life that is fulfilling and meaningful, with or without the people who once held my heart. I didn't need them anymore. I didn't need their approval or their love to feel whole. I had rebuilt myself, piece by piece, and in the process, I found a version of me that was stronger, wiser, and more resilient than I ever thought possible. The woman I had once been was gone, but in her place was someone new, someone who had learned to trust herself and to never settle for anything less than the love and respect she deserved. And with that, I found my closure. Not in the actions of others, but in the decision to reclaim my own life. I was free. The journey I've been through hasn't been easy, and I won't pretend that it has been without its moments of pain and doubt. But looking back, I can see now that everything I endured, all the heartache, the betrayal, and the anger, shaped me into a stronger person than I ever thought I could be. I learned that no matter how deep the hurt, I have the power to heal, to rise from the ashes, and to reclaim my own strength. Through this experience, I discovered that true empowerment comes from within. It's about learning to trust yourself, to put yourself first, and to not let the actions of others define your worth. It's about remembering that you have the strength to overcome even the most painful of betrayals. I know now that I can stand on my own, that I can create a life for myself that is full of peace, self-love, and purpose. But as I move forward, I can't help but wonder, how would you handle a situation like this? What would you do if the people you trusted the most betrayed you in such a painful way? Would you try to repair what's been broken, or would you walk away and find your own path? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please, share your experiences or reflections in the comments below. And if you want to hear more personal stories and explore deeper emotional journeys, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join me for the next one.